I think overall, this will be a massive lift for humanity as long as we are super careful about the inputs. The interesting thing with a model like ChatGPT, no one can explain to you how it works. Not one single person, if you type in any prompt and it gives you a response, there's no one that can say this is how it came up with that response. It's a black box. And so it's a massive amount of learning. But if the inputs were bad, the outputs will absolutely be bad. And where I worry is if people are using generative AI to create content, they're going to propagate very quickly something that was wrong because they got it from ChatGPT. They wrote a blog post about it. ChatGPT reads the blog post. It reinforces the wrong thing. And all of a sudden, the wrong thing becomes factual. That is what I worry about the most.
Hi, my name is Nadia Nagamootoo, business psychologist, coach, speaker, and founder of Avenir Consulting, which creates organizational growth and success via inclusion and diversity. We've been discussing the benefits that diversity brings to companies' bottom line performance for decades with more and more evidence. But there are so many questions organizations still have about how to achieve it. How do you create a culture where people feel valued for their uniqueness and the qualities they bring? I believe it's crucial to the future success and sustainability of every organisation that they find the answer to this question to make sure that each employee is not only supported but also appreciated. With this podcast, I aim to get some of the key challenges to creating inclusive workplaces out in the open and start uncovering the solutions to embracing a culture that cares for everyone. I'm going to be having conversations with some of the most inspiring people in different countries and across industries who are pushing the boundaries on inclusion and diversity in the workplace, from topics such as parenting in the workplace, ethnicity, age, gender, mental health, and all things inclusion. I want to create a movement to change society through sharing life experiences and creating more empathy and connection. Why care? I believe that once we have organisations and societies that accept and value everyone for who they are, we become healthier, happier, and better in our roles both inside and outside work. Hello, and welcome to episode 46 of Why Care. My name is Nadia Nagamootoo, and I am your host. In this episode, I am delighted to welcome Tarek Kamil, CEO and founder of Cerkl, an AI-powered platform that elevates internal communications. As a passionate tech enthusiast, Tarek strives to create innovative solutions that positively impact the digital world. He has lived his life with a no-regrets mindset, and to this end, it has led him down a path of a serial tech entrepreneur. One of his past ventures, What If Sports, offered sports simulation technology, games and content, and grew to over 500,000 members before it was acquired by Fox Interactive Media. Tarek founded Cerkl in 2013 when he set out to disrupt the internal communications industry using AI to deliver messages that are personalised and relevant to each individual. To me, this is one of the best ways for organisations to demonstrate that they truly see and hear each employee's needs. Inclusion at its best. We discuss the pros and cons of artificial intelligence when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Tarek shares the jobs and roles that AI will likely make redundant in the reasonably near future. However, he also explains how AI can be our fast track to creating equity, using the example of education to illustrate how a classroom of students with diverse abilities can each get tailored material and support to learn at their own pace. This conversation is gold for any organizational leader wanting further insight into the future of generative AI and machine learning. Enjoy. Hello, Tarek. A wonderful, wonderful welcome to Why Care. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I can't wait to have this conversation.
Me too. I'm excited to see where it goes. I have to say that I was really delighted to receive an email from you, your colleague, having then stalked you a little bit to find out more about this incredible serial entrepreneur. I was like, yeah, I'm definitely having you on you're up for it? I'm up for it. So thank you for reaching out. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background. So more than what I've read, I'm sure you can tell more about your story. You have founded and sold a few companies in your career. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background and what drives you.
Relatively simple. I'm a nerd. I love technology. And I think the common thread in my career is how can you use technology to make the world a better place? That's it. It is never about making money. It is about the world would be better if fill in the blank existed. I like to think about the fill in the blank part, and I like to make that thing, whatever that thing is, and try to make the world a better place. And it's funny, when you add value to people, whether you're saving them time, making their life easier, money follows that, but it's not the lead. It's never been the goal.
So where did you get that sense of social value, that wanting to make a change in the world?
My parents immigrated from Egypt when I was very young. I think it might come from being an immigrant and wanting to create value because you're not like everybody else. I think if I had to guess, that's probably it.
And so just talk us through a little bit about your sort of first venture into entrepreneurship. What was it that you did at a fairly young age, I believe?
I was in my 20s and I'd left a well-paying software engineering job at a big company. And my approach is really, how do you get through life minimizing the amount of regret that you have? So everyone has things that they wish they would have done. They have great ideas, but then they don't take the next step. So I'm thinking, I want to minimize regret. And so that all started with, I've always wanted to start a business. And I didn't want to get to the end and say, I've always wanted to do that, but I never did it. I think there's a safe route, and then there is the route which minimizes regret. And so early on, I would say at the age of 20 or 21, I started making decisions based on which path would minimize regret. And I always pick that path.
That's quite a unique and mature mindset for an early 20s person, no? I mean, it feels to me, I don't think I had that. That's certainly not how I made my decisions when I was 20, 21.
Well, don't get me wrong. I was a moron also. So a lot of stupid things. But I was raised, you've got two immigrant Egyptian parents, and they want you to be a doctor. That's just the culture.
Yeah.
And so after 3 years of university, I realized I don't want to be a doctor. I hate the sight of blood. I will pass out at work every day. I can't imagine this. And so after 3 years, I decided I don't want that to be my life. And I got the courage to tell them, I want to do things that I actually find interesting and make me happy. I'm not worried about money. I'm worried about not having any regret. So I think being raised that way, it forced me into a corner where I had to get to this place of, at a very early age, if you take the route of safety, you could be very unhappy. Safe, but unhappy. I would rather take risk and have the opportunity to be really, really happy. That was my learning at the age of 20.
Gosh. And so in terms of what led you to Cerkl, is there a short version of your career or the path that took you to setting up Cerkl?
Yeah, the short version is I was volunteering on my kids' school board here in Cincinnati, and I wanted to find a better way to get more people engaged with our kids' education. That's the very, very short version. And I thought technology can help us get there by driving engagement through personalization, just like Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and Spotify. They're all tailored to you.
Exactly.
Why isn't the communication tailored to each parent so they can see things and save them time where they can get engaged in a way that's meaningful to them? It was never intended to be a business. It was just trying to solve that problem.
For example, for that problem, what is it that the parents were lacking? What information could they have had that they weren't getting, for example? What's the personalization part?
It's a great question. So if you think about, it wasn't that they were lacking information. So as a parent, you're probably receiving an email from the school saying, here's everything that's going on every week.
Sure.
And we have no time. We're busy. There's so much demand on people's attention. It's hard to really cut through the noise. And so parents weren't reading because there's too much to filter through 50 things and find the one thing that's actually interesting to them. So how do we refactor that, knowing what each parent is interested in, and deliver that experience to them, which is exactly what Netflix and Amazon and others do to you every day. And so I thought if we could refactor that experience, people will be more likely to be engaged because the things they find most important will be the first things they see.
Excellent. And so that's where Cerkl was born from, out of that vision. And now, how does Cerkl use that purpose that you've just described? How does it serve other corporates and other organizations out there?
Where it really found a home, this technology, was when a large healthcare organization came to me and said, could we use this technology to tailor what each employee is receiving throughout our organization? So the way most people communicate today is they speak to the middle of the bell curve. That will grab no one's attention because it's so watered down. And I said, sure, let's try this. What are you doing today in terms of communication? And said, well, we use SharePoint as an intranet and we use Outlook for email. I said, that's shocking. They all do. And I said, that hasn't changed in 20 years.
Right.
And so the advances we've seen with marketing and understanding your customers, your prospects, none of that is translated into how we think about communicating with, engaging, and understanding your workforce. And so it was a big eye-opener for me that there's a real opportunity to make the workplace more human. Really. Treat them like individuals because they are.
And really that's where, from an inclusion perspective, from a diversity perspective, really recognizing each individual's needs, what is the information that they require to be able to communicate that effectively so that it's filtered for them and for their needs. Can you just expand a little bit more on the diversity and inclusion angle of your work? Because I know that you spend quite a lot of time thinking about this and trying to integrate diversity, equity, inclusion into everything you do at Cerkl.
Correct. Yes, I think it's a big deal. I really do. I think that making people feel included makes them more tied to the mission of the organization. They will produce better work. They'll be more productive. They'll stay longer. They'll tell their friends about what a great place this is to work. So there's so much value around just the idea of making everyone feel included. And so as Cerkl has evolved as a business, we're really thinking about that relationship between the employer and the employee. And if you take a very simple example, so let's say I go back to healthcare. I've got surgeons, I've got nurses, IT, I've got accounting, but I've also got facilities, right? I've got people that are fixing things. How do you make that person feel as valued and as included as the surgeon, right? And we don't do that today. The surgeon's getting a tablet, a laptop. They have access to all the technology within the organization. The person in facilities doesn't. They don't receive that type of technology. They don't receive that type of experience. So for us, it is thinking from top to bottom. We want everyone to feel the same. We want everyone to feel like this organization cares about me and values me. And communication is the one way that you're touching every employee every day.
It's such a good point. Like, I've got a few clients where either if it's retail-oriented client, they've got so many people on the shop floor, and then there's quite a distinction between the access that those in head office, the corporate center get in terms of learning and development opportunities, just any form of communication. It's just easier because they are generally sitting in front of a computer compared to those who are on the shop floor. And similarly, other clients where there's quite a large percentage of the workforce that are in call centers. And again, you've got that, at all factories. So there's those sorts of industries where there's a good proportion or group of individuals whose access to information isn't purely through a computer and by sitting at their desk. How would you then at Cerkl make sure that those organizations that have non-desk, non-office based, how could your approach support the communication with those people?
We think about the experience we want people to feel. And that's the key. So does that experience talk to you? Is it relevant to you? Is it about you? That's it. Let's start there. How you deliver the experience is ancillary, whether it's through a mobile app, whether it's through SMS, whether it's through a tablet, a laptop, intranet, Teams, Slack. It doesn't matter. And Netflix does not care how you consume Netflix. I want a big TV because I'm old and my eyesight is not fantastic. My kids can consume it on the phone because they have really good eyes, right?
Yeah.
Netflix doesn't care. They don't drive you to any channel.
Yeah.
But if you think about how companies operate today, they're driving certain types of employees to certain channels because you have access to that and others don't. That's fine based on technology, what you've deployed. But at the end of the day, the experience everyone should be the same. And that's what broadcast, our product, allows organizations to do at scale.
Are you able to measure the impact of broadcast of your product across different staffing demographics? So say, for example, comparing head office and their experience of the organization and how they feel included. Like, are you able to, and compared to those who are in the call center or, frontline shop people?
Yes, they can measure anything they would like. So for us, we give them the tools. It is up to each organization to decide what is important to them. It's any attribute within their people data. So if they wanted to compare locations, if they wanted to compare by who reports to whom, who's our most engaging people manager? If you wanted to understand based on tenure, do new employees feel as engaged as people that have been here 10 years or longer? How about by generation? Gen Z, Gen X, millennials, baby boomers, all of it. I would love to know that. Now, of course, you can use that for segmentation. So I want to send messages by any of these attributes.
Exactly.
But the real value is what you're alluding to, that I can see engagement by any of these metrics. And now I can start to adjust. If I see one is not engaging in the way that others are, maybe we need to change our messaging. Maybe we need to be more conscious about that group and talk to them in a different way. But if you don't have the data, you're working in the dark.
Yeah. Hi there. If you're enjoying this episode and want to further expand your thinking and develop your leadership, I've written a book that you might find useful. It's called Beyond Discomfort: Why Inclusive Leadership is So Hard and What You Can Do About It. The book is framed around a new model of inclusive leadership which explores 4 belief systems and offers pause for reflection on how you view diversity, equity and inclusion, or DEI for short. You'll gain new perspectives of some of the knotty DEI concepts, learn about the experiences of others who may be different to you, and develop an appreciation for alternative truths. Whether you're new to DEI, or have spent many years developing your knowledge, whether you're a business leader or DEI practitioner, my book offers a comprehensive learning opportunity. It gives you tools, tips, and advice to lead beyond discomfort, both individually as a leader and how to create systemic inclusion in the workplace. So if this sounds useful to you, check out the information in the show notes and click on the link to get your copy of Beyond Discomfort. Back to the episode. Let's talk about AI, because this is, I suppose, a new era. AI has been around for a while, but it certainly feels like of recent times, there's been a huge surgence into the world of AI, which now seems to be everywhere, ChatGPT and all the other tools. And I know that you leverage AI at Cerkl. So let's talk, how do you use AI to the benefit of communication and tailored communication?
So as I was thinking through this problem, when I first started this and thinking about communication in general, it really follows the model of I can only tailor and be relevant to you if I understand what matters to you. If Netflix were to just have 10 movies or shows that they recommend and everyone who logs in sees the same 10, Netflix would be out of business because it's monitoring your behavior. It's seeing how quickly you get through shows, what type of shows, who are the actors in the shows, what genre is the show or movie. And then that's how they learn. You will probably like these 5 shows because of your behavior.
What supermarkets do, right? They're seeing what we're buying on a regular basis, and then they can send us offers based on what's in our regular shop.
Oh, there's a great story. So this is all machine learning. So machine learning is what AI is based on. So how does it know what you like and what you don't like? How does Gmail know what is spam and what isn't spam? How does it know that that photo is of a cat? That's all machine learning. And so it's the training of AI. Well, I think it was Target.
We don't have it here in the UK, but I have heard of it.
They're all over the United States. And I'm pretty sure it was Target that was doing this. So they're monitoring people's buying habits and machines are learning. And this young lady, she started to receive offers for diapers, formula, whatever. And her father went in and said, why are you sending my daughter, who was 15 or something, all of these things around baby? And they said, we're sorry, we apologize, whatever. Well, it turns out she was pregnant. He didn't know. She had changed her buying habits.
Wow.
Non-scented this, certain vitamins. And so the machines learn when someone changes their behavior, it's most likely she is pregnant. They didn't know she was 15.
Right.
So the machines knew it before the father did. That's how machine learning works. And so within the world of internal communication, there's lots of things an organization can be saying to any one employee. Where it differs is organizations need you to see certain things. The message from the CEO, open enrollment for your benefits starts September 1st, product announcement, we've just acquired a company, leadership change, whatever it is. Those are not optional. Then there's all these other things that are going on within the organization that are optional. How do we learn about, from that bucket of optional content, what you would most like to see? Well, that's machine learning.
Yes.
That's based on everything that this organization is set around community service or volunteering. That's really important to you. We know that. We've seen it from your behavior. So when future content around community service and learning comes out, that's going to be very high priority for you. And maybe your colleague, very low priority. So in an organization with 10,000 employees, every one of their experiences will be tailored to that individual based on what they need to see, what they want to see and haven't already seen. So that's how within the world of internal communication, machine learning and AI are used today. We do that today. And then if you layer on top ChatGPT and generative I think you're going to see another acceleration in terms of personalization within the next 12 to 24 months.
The speed at which this technology is advancing is incredible. And certainly for a lot of us in diversity, equity, and inclusion and in the HR space and leaders as well, more generally, there's some caution there, right? Because when there's a huge disruption to what we know and there's a change in how things are working, and particularly when it's sort of unknown, it feels like we're losing control a little bit to AI. AI is taking over the world. AI knows more than we do. It knows we're pregnant before we do, that sort of thing. How cautious do we need to be around AI? Because there's all this kind of talk around AI is only as good as the people who design it, right? Which we know. It's still humans that are creating this artificial intelligence. And then, so it's whatever we feed it, that's what it's going to use to churn out. So if it's biased from the input, it's going to be biased from the output. So there's all of these fears, all of these concerns around AI. What's your take on it?
I think they're all warranted, honestly. I think it's early days. It's like any new technology. When the automobile was first invented, right? People are crashing and running into things because they hadn't thought of all the precautions that they need to build in and the safety. But would we ever say that the automobile wasn't good for humanity? No, we would never say that. Or the plane. Of course, those are good for humanity. The positive far outweighs the negative. And I think that the same is true for AI. I think in the beginning, yes, we're going to have some situations that will cause us to fine tune and refine and put in more precautions around this technology. But I think overall, this will be a massive lift for humanity as long as we are super careful about the inputs. The interesting thing with a model like ChatGPT, no one can explain to you how it works. No one, not one single person, if you type in any prompt and it gives you a response, there's no one that can say this is how it came up with that response. It's a black box. It's a massive amount of learning, but if the inputs were bad, the outputs will absolutely be bad. And where I worry is if people are using generative AI to create content, they're going to propagate very quickly something that was wrong because they got it from ChatGPT. They wrote a blog post about it. ChatGPT reads the blog post. It reinforces the wrong thing. And all of a sudden, the wrong thing becomes factual. That is what I worry about the most.
Have you got any examples of where that's happened?
There have been some obvious kind of funny examples of ChatGPT just giving completely wrong answers. People are catching them and highlighting them and making fun of it. There's probably a lot that no one is discovering. They just assume it to be true. No one is fact-checking this. They're not double-checking. They're not cross-checking. And so I think that's happening quite a bit. I think also, especially from a corporate environment, you have examples of people upload software code and it's not public. This is all private, confidential information. And now ChatGPT has that, and it is now making it available to others.
Oh, gosh.
Obviously, we need to put policies around within your corporate environment what you can and can't do. There have been advances in ChatGPT just in the last year to alleviate some of those concerns where it's walled off. It's for your company only. If you upload something, no one else will ever have access to it. It's the same thing. It's just like with the car. We're going to learn a lot in the beginning, and it's already gotten so much better.
With Zoom, if you remember, Zoom was a small startup. And then 2020 hit. And from, I can't remember the number of users they had pre-lockdown to what rapid acceleration of people signing up and using Zoom. It wasn't set up for that volume, for that scale. And of course, what happened was people then starting to abuse the loopholes. The security wasn't as tight as it could have been and all of that. And so Zoom very quickly learnt the people behind the scenes rapidly creating passcodes and what have you, right? And I remember that so vividly in lockdown, where there was a sort of judge and jury, wasn't there? And the court hearing or something and started doodling on the Zoom call. So funny. So so it's a genuine concern that the input isn't going to be right. It is going to be biased. What do we put in place? What are the precautions? How do we make sure that we're creating generative AI that alleviates inequity rather than reinforces inequity?
Such a great question. So if you think about it's the internet, it's the web. Who created that, right? And so it's mostly people of a certain demographic. And so there is inherent bias on the web today. How they solve for this, I don't know. I don't know how we're going to get from one side to the other without bias. And it probably is going to be the biggest roadblock with generative AI in general being just accepted as the truth, because it is based on inputs that were written by.
Yeah.
That's a problem. I don't know how we're going to get from here to there. I'm sure someone will figure it out. I think given the acceleration that we've seen just in the last 12 months and the sheer volume of money being thrown at AI is unbelievable. It is unlike anything we have ever seen before. So I'm positive we'll be able to figure it out, given how many smart people are thinking about this problem and how much money is being thrown at this problem. But today, there is no good answer for that question.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying this episode of Why Care. I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you more about the work we do at Avenir. We have a global team of DEI facilitators and coaches with a collective purpose to create a world where everyone feels like it was designed for them. We do this through our signature Inclusive Leadership Program, which includes a cutting-edge online simulation tool, sponsorship programs, intersectional talent development programs, and workshops that generate new and powerful conversations at all levels of organisations. If you're interested in learning more about what we do, please drop me a note either via our website or through socials. I'd love to hear from you. Back to the episode. What do you see if you were to predict the changes in technology and AI in combination over the next 5 to 10 years? What's on the horizon? What is it that we should be expecting, do you think?
I think the ability for us to use generative AI to help save us time, to give you ideas to get started. I think certain professions that are based on kind of holding on to knowledge, take the legal profession, for example. They should be terrified of generative AI. As today, you can upload contracts and have it review your contracts or compare these two agreements, and it highlights all the differences and the meaning. This means this, that means that. You should focus on paragraph 2, section C. It's unbelievable. And it's milliseconds to get that, right? So it's going to lead people that have different skills. I think they will do really well. Generative AI is not going back in the bottle. So people that are really good at communication, collaboration, problem solving, these skills are going to be invaluable. And other professions, I think, should be concerned. When we speak specifically about internal communication, it really is more about letting AI help them. So you don't have to do the dirty work of creating a piece of content, and then going to all these different channels, understanding who's seen it, not seen it. AI is doing that today. It is going to be more about, I need to write a memo in the voice of my CEO that's going to talk about the next quarter or leadership changes in words that a fifth grader would understand. It's going to be fantastic at helping you get started. So it's going to save people time. Then the next logical question would be, what do you do with the saved time? Now you can do things like what we were talking about earlier. Dive into the data. Yeah. Dive into the data, understand analytics, understand segmentation, like really show your value, because you have ChatGPT and other tools like it that's going to save you so much time. So how can you show your value in other ways?
So there's some reskilling probably for some people. Do you feel like those people whose jobs are, fit into this job description, actually it's those job descriptions will morph and change quite rapidly over the next 5 to 10 years, with generative AI taking some of that on and being able to do it at like 100 times the speed as a human would be able to do it. Is there any concern of certain socio-demographic groups being more affected than others? So those jobs, you've spoken about the legal profession, which is obviously more on the higher end of socioeconomic backgrounds typically. Are there any other socioeconomic groups that you think, particularly of maybe a lower socioeconomic background, who might be inadvertently affected by AI, pushed out of the workforce potentially if they don't reskill?
Absolutely. I think this is going to take jobs, kind of lower level jobs from people. I think it will be harder to get into the workforce. People that aren't exposed to technology, they're at risk. I think people at a socioeconomic disadvantage are going to have a much more difficult time working their way up, because now you're competing with computers kind of to get into the workforce. So you can't really start at step one. So I do worry that certain socioeconomic groups will be more negatively impacted. Yes.
We do about that, because there's a concern there, certainly from me, with an equity lens, with a lens around, we're already struggling to get underrepresented groups into the workplace and at senior levels in the organization. If they're now potentially not skilled in the right way to enter the workforce, to progress with the knowledge that they have, what's the positive action that we need to take for that demographic group now to predict and to support for the future?
Unfortunately, I think education is the answer to this problem. Why I say unfortunately is it lags. Our educational systems lag. From something like generative AI, it's years and years before our educational system catches up to figure out, how do we embrace this? How do we arm our children to be successful going forward? It will be 7 to 10 years, and we're going to have a valley where you're going to have people in this valley, ChatGPT and others, Bard, Gemini, exist. And 7 to 10 years of kids being taught the old way, they are going to be completely unprepared for what they're walking into. So 10 years from now, I think we'll be fine. Now, to say all of that, I think if I stick with education, the upside to this is that I believe generative AI will be the single biggest thing to positively impact education since the computer or the pencil. Why? Because our biggest issue with education is we're moving entire cohorts along together. If you've got 25 children in a classroom, we're moving them together at the same pace, where you have 5 kids that are 5 chapters ahead, and you've got 5 kids that are 5 chapters behind, and we're teaching to the middle. Generative AI is going to change all of that. It is going to be tailored to each student. So you're not going to have kids left behind. It's going to take us a couple of years to get there. When it is there, I think it will be the biggest impact in terms of leveling education and removing bias as part of our educational process. So we've talked about a lot of the downsides of AI and new technology. I think this will be tremendous for all of humanity in terms of really removing bias when it comes to education.
And how powerful, and because there's so many children who enter the education system and come out with less self-worth, less self-confidence than they entered, really feeling like they're not capable compared to their peers. They're benchmarking against everyone else who seems to think a certain way and be able to answer the questions that the teacher's asking without any issues. And they're sitting, struggling to focus, or they can't keep up, or they don't know what question to ask, or they do know what question to ask, but they don't know how to ask it. I mean, there's just so much that technology and AI can support with if it can offer that personalized approach. If you think about self-worth and self-belief and self-confidence, and obviously the correlation between that and mental health and well-being, which is a constant decline in the mental health of young people, certainly in the UK, and I'm pretty sure in the US too, and in many countries around the world. So I wonder how we might see a correlation there between that tailored, personalized approach where children aren't being left behind, where they're being educated to serve their needs, what their requirements are, tailored to their learning style, and hopefully positive correlation with mental health and well-being. Bringing it back to the workplace then, what advice do you have for leaders as AI disrupts and transforms how we do business, how we communicate, how we learn, how we navigate life in general?
This is not my idea. This was stolen from Facebook, but I love it. Try to do this every day, and I think all leaders should, is to really take some time and ask yourself the question, if fill in the blank existed, we would be out of business. Get them to really think about the future. What is going to disrupt you? And then build that thing. I think leaders, sadly, are often very short-term focused, especially with larger organizations. It's quarter to quarter. It's the next 3 months. And they're not thinking long-term. And so if you spent every day and had your people answer the same question, if fill in the blank existed, we would be out of business. What is that? What's the answer to that question? And why are we not building it? Why don't we make it? They get stuck with how things have always been done. And so AI is part of that. So you've got it now on the horizon. It is never going away. How would AI disrupt your business? Go build that thing. That's probably the most important piece of advice I could give to leaders, is to think that way. And then secondarily, I think the value of your people. If you look at any organization, their single largest expense is their people. That's what they're spending the most money on. It's also your single greatest asset. I don't know that all leaders see that. I think many leaders would say their customers are more important, their product or service is more important. And I would argue it is always your people. Invest in your people, because they're the foundation for everything else. How you deliver your product, your service, retention, retaining your knowledge. Your future leaders are going to come from your workforce. So to think about making sure you understand that your people are an asset, not a liability.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have to agree with you with the number of leaders that I come across and the number who still need convincing that inclusion isn't just a tag on to the business strategy, that they focus on the business strategy and they'll continue doing just as well as they've always done. So if inclusion hasn't been a focus up to date and they've been successful, why bother focusing on inclusion now? right? It's just be part and parcel of the work that we do. And it's such a gap in thinking, because when you layer over everything we've been speaking about and the disruption that's inevitable for every industry and every organization when it comes to technology and AI alone, businesses can't afford not to have inclusion front and center. Their people, making sure their people have a tailored approach to how they're experiencing the organization, to their needs, to how they're being communicated with, to how they're being listened to and heard, will be central, right, to their business proposition and the sustainability and whether they're here in 5 to 10 years' time. You're spot on with everything you've said, Tarek. I mean, I could talk to you for ages about this, and I feel like we just sort of skimmed the surface of technology and AI and everything that we're doing. But we're coming closely to the end of our conversation, and I'm asking all of my guests this season, having released my book, Beyond Discomfort, in March this year, to talk about a personal experience that you have had, which has pushed you beyond discomfort, something diversity, equity, and inclusion related, whether as a leader at Cerkl, whether just in your day-to-day life, or maybe something you've observed, but something that's really made you think and stop and question yourself in that moment of, oh, have I quite got this right?
How much time do you have? Because I fundamentally believe in this idea of discomfort. So I learned at an early age, goes back to kind of that conversation I had with my parents, very uncomfortable, and taking the road less traveled, taking risk, all uncomfortable. But that is where growth comes from. It is when you put yourself out there and you are uncomfortable and you do it anyway. And so I try to think all the time, what makes me feel nervous or anxious? And instead of people running away from that feeling, they should run towards it. Instead of society getting you to believe no one should ever feel uncomfortable, no one should ever feel anxious. I said, if that was actually true, you would never grow. You need to run towards those feelings. So when you have something put in front of you, they might come to you and say, we want you to talk to the entire company for 30 minutes. That is going to make you very, very nervous. And it's okay. You're human. You should be nervous. But you should also understand that those feelings, and the more nervous you are, so the bigger the opportunity for you to grow as a human being. How do you maximize the potential you can become? That is how you do it. I love the idea of discomfort, and I wish more people talked about it.
Is there a time when you've been alert to that feeling, that nervousness, that anxiety, feeling of maybe misstepping or making a mistake when it comes to diversity and inclusion, and doing it anyway, like walking towards it? Is there an example?
I'm not sure necessarily with DE&I, but it's anything. It's, meeting with, presenting to the board of directors, going on a big sales call, where it's a massive opportunity to grow the business. Anything, right, that makes you feel nervous. I, like everyone else, used to dread that feeling and try to minimize that feeling. And now I run towards it. I can't wait. That's my body telling me the big growth opportunity right in front of you. Go embrace it.
Brilliant. Well, I love that philosophy. I love how you, from such a young age, have seemed to have this mindset, which is, look, no regrets. Let's go for this. Let's run towards the anxiety and the potential failure, and let's see what happens. And you have created some incredible things from that mindset and everything that you do. Thank you so much for sharing, Tarek. It's been a pleasure to have you on YCare. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for your time.
Likewise. This was a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it.
If people want to get hold of you, where's the best place? You're on socials, I assume.
Yes, mostly LinkedIn. So just go out to LinkedIn, find me. People ask me, send me questions all the time. I love nerding out about these topics. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, ask questions, have a conversation, I'm also happy to just pick up the phone and talk to people. I just want to help people. Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, the link to everything that Tarek and I have spoken about today is on the usual show notes page, nadianagamootoo.com under podcasts. Thank you once again, Tarek. A pleasure to chat to you today. Thank you.
Nadia, thank you very much.
That concludes episode 46 of Why Care. Tarek's insights are a real wake-up call in how organizations can leverage AI to create a more inclusive organization that offers a personalized approach for its employees, users, and stakeholders. As with any disruption to life as we know it, it can be scary to think of the number of jobs that won't exist and how much will be taken over by machines. However, Tarek is right. It can bring about so many positives if leveraged in the right way. Do let Tarek and I know what you thought of today's show. You can find me on LinkedIn and Insta with the handle @Nadia Nagamootoo. As always, I really appreciate your support of this podcast through leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening and spreading the word by sharing it with your friends and family. Huge thanks to Mauro at Kenji Productions for editing this podcast and Jenny Linton for getting it out there on social media.